This is Tabletop Time, the show where we share all of our personal hobby with you, what we've been up to lately, as well as the latest in tabletop news. I'm Dave.
I'm Murray.
And I'm Jen.
And today we're going to share with you our experience entering our first ever painting competition, show off those models, talk about the whole process, what we took from that, and where we're going to go next. And then we're going to catch up on some of the latest reveals by Games Workshop. But first, I need a coffee.
Now you can see our past. You can see your future.
I see. The worm is the coffee, and the coffee is the worm. The worm is the coffee, and the coffee is the worm. The worm is the coffee, and the coffee is the worm.
How's coffee?
That was okay. So there comes a time in many people's hobby journey when they decide that they want to start taking painting seriously. I have been doing this hobby for many, many years, and I have to say that my own skills have gotten better and better since starting to do this full time. Surprise, surprise. Painting on a YouTube channel, even though we paint fast, quick, turnaround, things like that, it still overall improves your brush control skills. But seeing all these amazing peers out there has made me itch to get better at actually painting. And it was when we realized we could go to Adepticon that the idea kind of started to boil up of, hey, we could actually enter Golden Demon and we can give this a crack. So Jen and I set about discussing what we'd be entering for Golden Demon. This was in about January. And I picked doing a Horus Heresy model, a Mechanicus model, and I started to conceptualize that.
For me, I had a model in mind pretty much straight off the bat. I knew I wanted to paint Marathi from the Daughters of Cain series. It's a model that I've loved ever since it came out, but I needed a really good reason to put a lot of effort into it, so a painting competition was perfect for that.
So it became pretty relevant while I was getting ready for Adepticon that it was just not enough time. I had maybe 2 months and I was going to need to make it impressive, scratch build a lot of stuff, repose things, make this really impressive scene base for a model. And it didn't take me long before I kind of was ready to give up. So I kind of took the easy way out. And I find that unfortunately I do this a lot where I just decided that the challenge of doing it was too great. Like the impact of trying was going to ruin my enjoyment of the event and the lead up to the event.
Yeah, you wanted to be happy with what you'd done and not... there's a thing where people hate the entries by the end of it because I poured so many hours into, very annoying aspects of it. But you wanted to enjoy the feeling of entering for the first time, and by the end of rushing to both finish a miniature, get all the content that we had planned to release while we were away, and also get all the way to America, it was going to be too much. And I think that's fairly fair.
Yeah, I also didn't want to enter Golden Demon knowing that I hadn't done my best and knowing that the only outcome was that I hadn't done my best. I just sort of felt bad the whole time. So we ended up coming back from Adepticon, not entering Golden Demon, but so inspired. I mean, when John won bronze, it was like, oh my God, one of the YouTube crew. I know there's YouTubers who have won demons before that created channels, but I feel like John's the first one that wasn't a demon winning painter, like a pro painter before starting the channel, that has gone on to grow and create and win now. Or at least the most public journey, because he was sort of showing that off for the last few months. That was super inspiring, but even just talking to regular painters meant that when we got back and we knew we were going to Arc Fest. This is the first year of Arc Fest in Melbourne, that we wanted to enter Arc Open, which is a really big painting competition that's been growing. It's fairly new, and this year it had over 200 entries across its categories. And that's what we said about preparing to paint. And we all picked a different model. We all had 3.5 weeks of whatever free time we had.
Yep, we arrived back from America and basically went, cool, go. And the first thing that I did was go through all the boxes and blister packs I had, trying to find something that was both inspirational for me, because I wanted to really enjoy and tuck into something that I loved, but also find something that could show something off to the judges and hopefully come up with something cool. And I ended up going for an old fantasy Conquering Hero of Chaos, which I got a rerun that was in Finecast. Finecast was a terrible idea because a lot of the quality, all the rivets were inverted and basically craters, and I hated that. But the model was fun, so I at least enjoyed that. And I had a lot of metal to play with and textures. It was good.
So why did you pick a Finecast epic hero of chaos?
I'd had it for a while. I'd bought it with the intention that I wanted to do a nice paint job. This was never going to be in an army or a graded collection. It was just a one-off model, which, as a predominantly miniature painter, that's what I do. I go out and buy the one model that will never be in an army, and it'll sit on a shelf until I get the right mojo to paint it and put it back on a shelf to look at it. So I sat down and decided to make work on that. There wasn't much planning out for the base or anything. I started a bit later than you guys, so I sat down, glued it onto some corkboard, which works for competition painting. It's not the greatest, but I decided I want to start this evening. So I sat down, glued that onto a base, added a skull for some variety, and I just started painting. Better to start than to think about it for too long.
Can I ask, like, it was based on an artwork, is that right? Like, what was your inspiration for your color scheme?
Yes. So I wanted to go with something sort of old school, as the model itself is old school. And I had in my mind the classic artwork of John Blanche's artwork of Harry the Hammer, a very iconic Warhammer Fantasy character, sort of golden armor. So I wanted to paint basically lacquered yellow armor. And I accidentally just started doing non-metallic metal. And I was like, you know what, this is working for me. So I kept going with that. And in the end, I think subconsciously, I was just thinking about Gaul from Del Toro Quest and the Forest of Silence, which made me even happier, to be completely honest. So I just went with the flow and went full into it.
Oh yes. Now, we have lied on our thumbnail. I think.
No.
Because we've never entered a painting competition. So you have entered painting competitions before, Murray?
Yes. I entered Golden Demon as a young blood years and years and years ago. And then a bunch of local painting competitions, but nothing at a huge event or anything. It was certainly not as an adult. I know, I think it stands to reason.
It counts. It was the first real painting competition.
Yeah.
Professional tier painting competition as an adult. Like Youngbloods was a long time ago for Murray.
Yeah, I was 14, I think.
Okay.
So it was a hot minute ago.
Long time, a long time.
So what were some things you're thinking about when you were going into this? Like, you knew you had a limited amount of time, but you're also trying to make the best of it. Like, talk us through anything, any pointers, anything you want to get across.
Something that was always on my mind was contrast, both with textures and colors. That's very important. And I knew that although I was going to have pretty much all of his armor was going to be this gold, I wanted spots of color to drag your eye around the miniature and just keep it going and to add those little sparks of interest. Hopefully my non-metallic metal was interesting enough to sort of sell all the different textures and rendering on the rest of the model. I think I still got a lot to go. Realistic non-metallic metal is, it's a hell of a journey. Light is extremely hard to paint. That's why it's so fascinating to look at when someone's done it well. And I think, for better or worse, I'm very used to painting what I'd call sort of cheat non-metallic metal, where you just sort of highlight in this corner and say, oh, okay, so then it connects to this panel, so I'll just paint that dark and sort of end up with this checkerboard pattern, which looks very effective, but it's not realistic. So trying to actually delve out of that was quite challenging. I think there's some areas where I could have definitely done it better with a couple of goes, but overall, I'm really happy.
Cool. So getting to this event. So this event was called Arc Fest, as I mentioned. I think what we were all surprised by was the sheer caliber of quality that was in those cabinets when we arrived. Like any thoughts of, like, this is enough or I have done enough evaporated immediately upon arriving at the event. I've got no sort of illusions. Yeah. I've got no illusions about my level of quality. I'm quite clear that there's huge room to improve even with my best work. But I also knew with my model that it wasn't my best work and I'd only spent 3 weeks on it, which I'm not going to pretend I didn't spend a lot of time on it. It was 3 weeks. It was still like 40 or 50 hours of painting. But I think some of those cabinet entries, sometimes people do like 100, 200 hours on a demon. Getting to the event, I don't know if you felt the same, Murray, but it was just like, oh, okay. Because we'd just come from Adepticon. We'd seen Golden Demon cabinets. ArcFest is up there.
Yeah, well, I sort of had this expectation. Like, I follow a lot of painting competitions or whatever online, results and winners, and I sort of see what's out there. But even going to this venue in, Melbourne, Australia, it's not a huge international league, but it was incredible. like there would have been some real tumblers going for Golden Demon winners.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and this particular competition got, I think it was over 200 entries.
Yeah,
as
over
well.
200.
So that's for us, that's quite big. For Australia in general, I think that's quite a lot of entries.
I don't even know if Golden Demon had that many entries at
Really?
Adepticon. The cabinets weren't that full.
maybe.
They were pretty sparsely spread out. So as for me, while Murray was painting that blessed hero, exalted hero of chaos, I chose a model I actually bought at Adepticon. I ummed and ahed a lot about what I wanted to do, and there are a few options where I actually asked for some advice, and people suggested that the last model I should do is the one I picked, that's the worst thing I could paint. And I agreed with them. In terms of competition painting, I chose to paint Exodus, who's a character in Alpha Legion, and I also chose to paint Exodus sort of in the same color scheme as the army. And the reason I did this is, and I think this is important for everyone, is there's a balance between painting for competition and painting something that you want to love every minute of painting, because you're going to be painting it a lot. So I knew that I was never going to have enough time to kind of give my 100% best competition entry. And even if I did, I don't think I would have been able to compete, but it's kind of irrelevant to the point of why I chose Exodus, which was I wanted to make sure that at the end of this, I had something that I was happy with as a army piece for my Alpha Legion at worst. So the worst case was I had a really nicely painted Exodus. But there are a lot of issues with this model for a painting competition. There's so much texture. There's not much room to show off artistry because a lot of the texture is sculpted on and kind of realistically too small. I'm sure the best painters in the world could do something really good with it. But for me, with a fairly new paint scheme, there was a lot of learnings, and it was stressful. It was really tough to put together a painting comp entry in like 3 weeks. And I was trying sort of some different techniques. I tried out a lot of like stipple blending on the cloaks, which was new to me, and I freehanded my new Alpha Legion symbol for the first time.
We'd seen stipple blending quite a bit at Golden Demon. I think it's a very predominant and up and rising technique, so it was really cool to see you give that a go.
Yeah, it was definitely something where I treated this model as, it's almost like a sample pack of dabbling in things that I want to push in further entries. Because everything I could do, I could kind of push far enough to get a feel for what I was doing, but then I had to leave each step and go, okay, now I'm moving on, because it would be better to come back to this if I have an abundance of time and like finesse it. But if I don't keep moving on, I won't finish the model. So there's areas on this model that are painted that really look a lot better than other areas. But overall, it was a journey, and I had some interesting choices with color, and I got to play with some things, but it was super worth doing, and it kind of proved to me that I can really enjoy sitting still and painting one model for a long time. If anything, I would have been happy with more time. The only thing that made me not happy about painting this mini was getting closer to the due date and realizing I didn't have enough time. And then it became stressful, but it wasn't like painful stressful. It was just like, it wasn't that, it wasn't like Fulgrim where I was like, I don't want to touch this model. I just want to throw it in the bin. It was like, I was really enjoying the actual process.
Yeah, you could see how much you had to do, and you were probably anxious that you weren't going to be able to get everything done to the degree you wanted to.
Absolutely.
But I have a question. You've tried a whole lot of different colors, textures, and techniques on it. What was your favorite one little aspect of painting that?
I have too many.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
No, to be honest, everywhere where I learnt something new. So one of my favorite things was doing the venomous spheres. You can't see them that well on the finished product, but I followed image examples by Louise, Rogue Hobbies. She originally did a masterclass tutorial on Warhammer TV that we watched when we reviewed Warhammer TV. And I do remember us saying at the time, we were like, this is the best thing on Warhammer TV. I think it's in the video.
Yeah.
That was before we even really knew that Louise was doing anything. It was just like, yep, this was definitely the best part about this. Anyway, so those vials, really happy with them. The lenses, it was the first time with the lenses where I have a routine, and I'm sure everyone out here can get into a routine where I have a formula to do good tabletop lenses. It's like boop, 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 dot, done. Every time it's the same thing. And this time I went, wait, what if I actually look at some lenses and actually do them properly and do way better glazes and blends? And I was so much happier with it. It looks awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to say the little globules and the lenses were fun.
Awesome. All right, Jen,
Yes.
tell us about your model.
So I actually started my model quite a while back in December was when I got it just before December. I believe we started in December to think about Golden Demon, but I actually got ahead and I started building Marathi. And I took it super seriously. So the first thing I did was I was like, okay, how do I want to base it? What I want it to look like? What colors do I want to use? And I got a couple of things. So the first thing I did was I ordered the Chimera paints, right? Because I was like, I want to use these paints specifically. I want to try them out. And I want to do this like artistic approach to painting where it's more like I make my own blends. I don't rely on a certain color. I could make my own, keep my wet palette so I knew what colors to build up from. It's just what I'm more used to working with instead of being like, this is Thousand Suns blue or this is pink horror. Like I'm not super into that unless you're painting an army. So I got those paints and I love them. I think they're really great. So she was painted entirely with those paints. The other thing I did was make a mood board of all of the textures that I wanted to use on this model. So I knew I wanted to base her in lava. So I got a bunch of lava images just to have a look at. I knew that I wanted to paint her as like a green snake. So I wanted to see what I could, like what colors I wanted to use, how the shine works. I got a ton of reference images and that was my little mood board. And I kind of wish I had referenced that a little bit more through the painting process. But again, because we were on such a time crunch, I kind of had to throw it to the side for a bit, get in just those basic volumes to each shape and just kind of keep painting to make it look good.
Now you had a little bit of a head start versus Mari and I. That's
Yes.
a month or two
About that.
of like
yes.
loose painting. Now you got to remember we have jobs that require us to paint other things.
Yeah, so she was painted entirely in my spare time. I also assembled her. So her wings went on last. I made the column first and then I made her and then kept the wings and her head separate. But I didn't realize the column actually has to slide around the snake tail. But I already built her. So I had to try and shove this column into her snake tail, which was absolutely terrifying. But I got it to work. But working it with different pieces was both a good thing and a bad thing. So it was good because she's such a big sprawled out model. I couldn't paint this in one go. Like it would just be too hard and too fiddly. But the bad thing is I also decided I wanted to try and do some OSL. So the lava around her would create this sort of glowing light emitting from the bottom of the base. So I had to try and figure out how I wanted this light to look on this model, but the OSL didn't exist yet. So that was really interesting and fun to tackle. And at the end of the day, look, I'm really happy with what I have achieved, but I do also want to go back and do a couple more touches because I emptied a large model for such a short amount of time. I obviously didn't 100% finish, but I'm still really happy with how she looks.
We might be giving a bit of a mispretense that we had 3 weeks and we got to the end when we're done. We've got like a day before the event or whatever. We can relax. No, we finished very down to the wire. I finished, it was on the Saturday, I finished technically Saturday 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Jen, when did you finish?
Yeah, the weekend before Adepticon, I had no time. I literally was not at home and I couldn't take the model with me. So the weekend before was me and I had no choice. I had to stop. And I didn't want to touch it because I was so scared I was going to screw it up.
And Dave?
Well, about 3 a.m. the night before, like on the Saturday morning, I finished painting Exodus and I built a base. I didn't have a base. I built a base then. So I hadn't done the basing. And then the Saturday of the first day of ArcFest, so you can submit your models on the Saturday all the way up until 9:30 a.m. on the Sunday morning. I basically spent all of that day we spent a lot of time talking to people, but I painted on Saturday. We went home. I painted for many hours on Saturday night doing the base, probably another 3 or 4 hours, and then I just finished, literally at the wire. And, it was probably the most frustrating part because there's parts of the base that I love and I'm really happy with, and there's parts of the base that I kind of did the first time really roughly. It looked bad and I had to just sit with it. Yeah, especially the front of that air conditioning unit thing. But I'm really happy with the base I built. So I kind of scratch built this base from a few different components, and I think it's pretty effective. But yeah, it was down to the wire.
Yeah, very last minute. All right, so final thoughts on having been judged.
It was awesome. So I got a commanded entry. It's a little bit different to Golden Demon. I think they were very generous with the commanded entries at ArcFest. So it seemed to me from a broad look that at least sort of like 50% of the field got commanded entry and above. The other thing they do at Arc Open is they have multiple gold, silver, and bronze medals based on sort of skill. So we had generally 2 or 3 golds, 3 or 4 silvers and like 5 bronzes for each category.
It's more like you got into the category of
Yes.
bronze, silver, and gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Which is really cool. And then there was commended, which there were a lot of commended. So I got commended, which was good.
It's worth saying that we all got commended, all 3 of us. It was very nerve-wracking for Jen, but I'll let her talk about that. But yes, we all got commended. Very happy about it. It's awesome. And yeah, we got to talk to some really good painters there, get their thoughts and also some advice for how we could have fixed some things or improved for next time. As mine was never going to be a gaming piece, I very immediately got the advice a few times that I could have just put it on a plinth, make a very much a nicer base, a larger base. Also, the fine cast sculpt, just the original sculpt of the fur on this, was an absolute pig to paint and I hated it. It was awful. It's just this scraggly seaweed mess of supposedly fur. But I got the advice that you can fill up some of the bad textures using PVA and then manually sort of do the brush strokes and stuff. So that's something I'm definitely gonna try next time. That's really cool. Other than that, yeah, just sort of basically improving, which is such a weird thing to say, but basically it's also the biggest compliment you can get. It's saying, you're doing the correct thing, just keep doing it, keep trying, keep experimenting, and you'll get better at it, which
Practice.
is, yeah, it's every time someone says, how do you get better? Keep practicing. That's what it is.
Yeah, so your entries, yours got judged first. Single miniature got judged first. And we noticed that they put them back in the cabinet and you could see that you guys had gotten commended. And so mine was in the large figure category. And mine was one of the last ones to get judged. So they had a couple of other categories to do first. So I was absolutely nervous and I said that if I didn't get anything, I would
Cry.
because we wanted to all celebrate. And Dave put it really well. It's like if one of us won a medal but we all got commended, that would have been amazing. We've been really happy for the person. But if 2 of us got commended and 1 didn't, that would be so sad. So I was very nervous at that point in time. I had no sort of thoughts about this model. I put it in and was like, I'm just gonna try it, say I've done it. If I don't get anything, that's totally fine. I have just done the best job I can do. But then I was like, oh no, I actually really want to get it commended. But I did. So it was really good. I also got feedback from Victoria Lamb as well. She had a look and came up to me and she was like, it's really good. Same deal again. If it's a gaming piece, she's like, it's really good. And I had every intention to put Barathi on a plinth, especially for when we were going to Golden Demon. But at the last minute, I was like, oh, I actually kind of want to start a Daughters of Cain army. So I don't want to do that because I want to have her as a gaming piece. But again, she gave me some really good feedback on some of my blends and stuff too. So I will take that all on board for my next mission.
Awesome.
So as for me, I guess it's interesting, judging minis, talking about minis. I realized something I do, and after the weekend I reflected on it, and I want to endeavor to stop doing this, is making excuses where you don't need to. I'm very apologetic, and I think that it's bad. So I would always be qualifying. I only had 3.5 weeks to paint this. It's a gaming piece. I'm using my paint. But all of that really doesn't matter at all. I think it was David Colwell and Andrew Buckley were standing there talking to me, and I brought that up, and I think it was David said oh, that's don't let anyone tell you metallics can't be the best. I mean, we got Golden Demon winning true metallic metal. So I was kind of yeah, and I did it multiple times where I would just be almost defensive about it, but it's not defensive because I didn't have an ego. It's apologetic. I was kind of feeling guilty that I'd submitted this and it wasn't up to a sort of perceived standard, which is really weird. And it was a weird emotion to go through, and something I endeavor to make it feel like people can give better feedback because I'm not being defensive, and I don't want to be perceived as being defensive because I wasn't. I was just being I got to clarify all these things. So I don't know. It was silly.
I think it's very much an arm of imposter syndrome or something.
Yeah, probably. But I have to say, so ArcFest was put together. It was really, really good. Arc Open was awesome. The winner of the day was Andrew Buckley, who, very well done. We'll show a picture from Arc's socials. He won 3 golds and a silver, I think, and got basically the best in show. And it was interesting because he's actually the Games Workshop store manager from when I was younger, 10 years ago, before I opened my shop at the store I used to go through. And in fact, the store we all went through.
Yeah, individually.
But Murray and I didn't really know each other well at that point, so I didn't didn't remember ever seeing you there, but apparently we were the same shop. But what was really cool is I had a chat to him and he gave me some really good feedback on my model, which I really appreciate. If you watch this, thank you. And I did the same thing in that. I was like, oh yeah, I know this is bad. I know this, but I should have just shut up and listened to the critique because it was really good feedback. But what was really cool is he told me that he made this choice to start painting, really painting to try and sort of become really good, but only made that choice sort of COVID, which made me go, oh my God, like I can do that. You don't have to have been competition painting for 15 years to make that decision that I care about this and I want to get good. And I was like, hell yeah, like that inspired me so much just to hear that. And the comments on like things I could have done better, things to work on, which is super interesting. And I the advice was do it on your next piece, but there are a few things I want to go in and just fix this with some glazes to get the lighting a bit better and the values a bit better. But it just made me so damn excited. I don't think I've ever been as excited to paint miniatures as I am after entering this painting competition.
No, you were over the moon. You kept talking about it. And I want to juxtapose with how good you felt at the end of that, with you coming in at the start of the event and being like, maybe I won't enter, maybe I won't do this. It's whatever. It's like, you know, oh, even if I don't win and it's all crap, you know, at least it'll look good in my army, I suppose. And you did amazingly, and you are absolutely stoked to just start painting the next thing.
Yeah, and it's so good. It's a good personal journey thing, because I've been in the place where I'm sure people out there can relate to, where it hurts. I've hurt to try really hard and suck. Not saying that's what happened today. I'm just saying I've experienced that. And I think there's a point of maturity and self-reflection you get to where you kind of can embrace knowing that you're not the best. And it feels so good to actually just be like, I can improve. I want to improve. And the journey is the fun. Like the journey is the reward. The destination's got to be pretty good too, but I'll wait and hear from the winners and tell me about that. But even the winners, it seems like there's a vibe of like, yes, validation, cool, next one. Like even they seem to want to just dive into the next project, which is awesome.
I was going to say, it was really interesting with Andrew. I remember him talking to you and having a conversation. He was like, my goal was to be the best painter, right? Like the world's best painter, right? And it was really cool for him to have said that. And then we saw him get the award for best in show. Like, he was so charming.
It was very nice for that to be a moment there. And look, all of the Australian painters that were there and talked to us were all awesome. And on that note, if you're Australian and you care about this stuff and you want to get better at painting, I wanted to do something. We have a platform, and that's all we are as YouTubers. I mean, we can get information out. So we were speaking to Jared, who was one of the judges, Jared Clifford, who is an exceptionally good miniature painter, and basically finding out about the fact there's all these chapters of painting guilds opening up who, if you in Australia want to get better and want to go to monthly paint meetups or whatever the groups in particular are organizing in your local capital cities, I cannot think of a better way to get better at painting than to sit at the same table as Australia, if not the world's best painters.
Yeah, if you want to get good at painting, the best thing you can do is just talk to other painters. Sit down with them and paint together. It's an amazing environment because people want to paint with other people. It's a great community sort of thing.
So we're going to put a mountain of links in the description. If you want to check them out and you're local to these areas, please do. And say some annoying YouTubers told us to hassle you, because it'll be funny. So we have the Sydney Display Painters Guild, the Canberra Display Painters Guild, the Adelaide Display Painters Guild, the Perth Display Painters Guild, the Brisbane Display Painters Guild, and just to be different, the Melbourne Figure Painters Collective. I just like that we have 5 guilds and a collective. Good stuff. So if you want to check them out, check out their socials, Instagrams down there, and we'll also chuck a couple of other links of the stuff that we've been talking about down there, and you can explore, but it will be a wall of text. So go have a look.
Last thing I kind of wanted to mention was that although our stuff got judged, we got to judge as well.
Oh, yes.
Cool.
Yeah, we did.
So we got to judge in 2 different painting things that were going on at ARC. The first one was the Age of Sigmar tournament. They had their armies on display.
Yeah, sort of judging the entire army as a collective.
Yeah, which was really cool to do. We have some footage of that. There's some really themey stuff in here, so it was really hard to be like, to judge it, because there was stuff that tickled all of us. But amazing work from everyone. There's so much love and thought put into these displays. It made me want to make a display, like 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so cool.
It's interesting the thought process that goes differently into painting an army versus, judging an army paint job versus judging a independent paint. We also got asked by Let's Play Games Distribution to judge their speed painting competition, 24-hour speed painting competition. And it's really interesting, there's just things you look at differently. Like with army painting, there is an average line that becomes really important. Like you can't judge an army by the best centerpiece model in it. You have to judge an army by the entire armies. Like obviously all of it factors in, but if you have like models that aren't painted in an army with the best paint job you've ever seen, and then an army that's just really well painted across the board, it's hard to judge the army with unpainted models. It can't beat the army that's just fully painted well across the board.
Yeah, and a sort of tabletop standard paint scheme is sort of, you'll put less effort into the rank and file troops. Like your 100 Skaven clan rats are going to look worse than probably the one Warlock engine seer or something you have. You're going to spend all your time on that hero. But if you're going to be judged as an entire army, consistency across all the models is pretty key. And that's something we came to grips with pretty quick.
Yeah, those painting competitions were super cool.
Yes, and it was really cool for people to come up and ask for feedback. So I think if anyone is wanting to get into miniature painting, don't be afraid to go up to the judges and just be like, hey, can you give me some personal feedback? I found it really interesting because I had a lot of compliments to give people as well. And I think we also had some constructive feedback, so it was good.
It was funny being in a painting competition where you're not even remotely in contention for top places, but then also judging painting competitions. But the way I kind of reconciled it was I really thought like the best food critics in the world don't have to be chefs. You know, like there's a level of our lives is miniature painting. We're on the internet, we're surrounded by it, and we do mini review on the channel. We have a pretty damn good eye for what works and what doesn't. So I didn't feel at all underqualified. I kind of had to come to terms with it myself that being the like celebrity cough guest judges sort of thing is just something that hopefully people keep asking us to do because we really enjoy doing it, and we can totally do it. We're qualified.
Yeah.
Promise.
we have a certificate.
Yeah, we're commended. Well, this was on our judging, commended judging. There is one final other thing, which is the very funny tidbit that I kind of feel like I might have entered the wrong model, or I should have entered another model, because a while back I painted scrap on the channel, and we recently rewatched the reveals and realized they're terrible and don't show off the model as being nearly as well painted as it is. Now it is 2 years ago, I can probably paint better than it now, but I had spent a lot of time on scrap. We had brought a bunch of stuff to the fest from Tabletop Time just to show off and fill a display cabinet. And at the very same competition, I was so in my head about Games Workshop that I forgot Arc Open is open to all miniatures. And I had one of the best models I've ever painted just sitting there. And then I had a model I painted in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
and you realize that each artist can enter the same category up to
multiple
3 times.
Yeah. So I didn't enter scrap. It was sitting there next to the painting competition the whole weekend. It could have been in the painting competition. Now look, I don't think it would have got a medal or anything, but it's just funny because I think it would have been judged more like kindly, or it would have been better overall than Exodus.
Yeah, it's the most bittersweet Eureka moment when we're packing up and Dave walks past the cabinet, claps his hands to his head and goes, I could have entered scrap. What am I doing?
I am so excited for the next one. You guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I can understand why when we went to Adepticon, all of the artists just like stalking around the Golden Demon cases because you're just absolutely terrified and just want to be judged and know what the outcome was. I totally get it now.
And do you know another really good way to get better as a painter? So patrons of our channel at the second tier get to take part in our monthly mini review.
Tell me more.
And in our mini review, we go through, you submit your models, you submit your whips, and you get to ask a question and get feedback. And we go through all of those models every month, and we basically give people feedback to the level of critique they're asking. So people can sort of say like, brutalize this. I really want like strong critique. People can say, encourage me. You know, I'm learning, I'm new, just give me some pointers. So there's also all of those painters in the Discord, and you can chat to them in our private Patreon mini club Discord. So, you know, just maybe consider supporting the channel, chuck on over to the Patreon and join in the mini review.
Yeah, it's extremely topical. In fact, that we will be doing mini review
Today. Yeah, we've got to film it after this, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So, with that done, the other thing that we do is talk about the news and new releases.
News!
But this week, I brought in my laptop to open up and we could reference the pictures. There's so little to actually talk about that we can just talk about the main thing. But before we do, I have another point to make, which is, I don't want this news section to just be Games Workshop. They get enough free press as it is. So I shoot a challenge out into the internet. If you are or know people in the marketing departments of miniatures companies who would like to get the word out, send us info. Get in touch with us on Instagram, on Twitter, join our Discord and say hello. Let us know and get in touch. And basically what we want to do is, if other companies have some releases that we might not have seen because we don't necessarily follow them really closely, it'd be really cool to get some smaller companies in the limelight as well. It will make the news section more interesting, and I'd like to do it as my community service for the month. I don't know.
Yeah, and we get to see even more cool miniatures, which is entirely self-serving.
So, news this week, we have basically one thing.
Yeah, one big one. Well, big to us.
What is it?
It is some brand new Stormcast.
Oh, I was going to say something different just to be funny, but all right.
We got some Stormcast Eternals, and we have one of my favorite models in just full stop.
Yeah, well, a reimagined design.
Yeah, the Prosecutor kit has been reimagined, and I have to say the Prosecutors have always been my almost favorite thing.
Why? Why, Dave? For people who don't know what we're talking about, what is cool about them?
I grew up playing a little game called Diablo.
Hell yeah.
And they always reminded me, with the light wings and all of that business and the golden armor, of the angels from Diablo, which I adored. Archangel Tyrael in Diablo 2 was just the coolest character, and the cutscene with him fighting Tal Rasha, it just made me like endlessly hyped as a kid. So that carried on, and I actually themed all of the winged characters in my army after Diablo. I give them hoods and paint their face like a black constellation, like jet black, and sometimes I put like stars in their face. So the thing is, Prosecutors have always for me been like almost awesome. They in concept, they're really cool. A lot of them looks really cool, but they also kind of look chunky, cumbersome, don't sit on their base as well, wobble like this constantly because they're hovering on a scroll, and their wings are the biggest nightmare to position on the battlefield of any model ever. Like, they are the worst. And this new reimagining just looks really good. I love the Thunderstrike armor. It looks so much better. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure that I love the wings. I think I like the concept of the original wings better with the sunburst light.
Yeah.
But I understand the flames have been done, obviously, because those wings just suck. Transporting, hooking on models, blah, blah, blah.
I think they have like the Saint Celestine like robot wings, and they've got the fire coming out of them as well, I noticed in one of the pictures. So I'm in the same boat. I love the original design, but as someone who has them at the store, oh my goodness, they catch on to everything.
Yeah, they're terrible. You can't even place the models within like 3 inches of each other.
So I get it.
I also think that the way, this is a subtle thing, but if you look at the picture of the back of the model with how the backpack actually mounts on the back, I think it's built into their back a lot more. So anyone who's got Prosecutors might know they used to attach by like maybe 1 millimeter by a centimeter, like this really narrow strip. It was awful. So the wings would just break off. So I hope the wings are a lot more solid and connected to their back a bit better. The only thing I'd love to see in the future for Prosecutors is I want to see those backpacks like deactivated. I would love to see one on the ground folded up, and then I can picture them like unfurling and this light bursting out of them and flames igniting. That would be super cool. I really hope we get a Stormcast character, so I can have, do you know Brian Blessed in Flash Gordon?
I know Brian Blessed, but...
And he's like flying with his wings, and he's... Yeah, I want that. I want my character leading my Birdman army that can just fly in.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the Games Workshop painting staff also really like them, because they've done a lot of true metallic metal painting on their weapons and such, which is really nice. Also, I kind of like, there's just a little bit of a sort of a gladiatorial aspect. You've got the sort of tridents and the crests. Very cool.
They always had the elements, but to me, they always felt like they didn't quite mesh. So I thought that the hammer, shield, or 2 hammer Stormcast Eternal Prosecutors felt more like they all cohesively fit. And then the shield and trident and the crested helms just felt like two different design aesthetics, sort of not quite meshing perfectly. But the new model with the Thunderstrike armor, I think that with the sections of like segmenta and the chainmail and the scale mail, it just works a lot better. And the proportions, the trident looks so much better. And even the open-faced helms, while I won't be using any of the helms because I replaced them all with hoods, I think that going for the full gladiator helmet with the mohawk looks better than the face mask. And I hear that is helmeted. The Warhammer community team sort of said in a reply to someone, I saw this on the internet, they were like, yes, there is an alternate head in the kit that has a fully enclosed head. So you get both.
That's cool.
So aside from the brand new Prosecutors look, there are a few new things. We've got a bunch of epic kits, or Legions Imperialis kits, that have been shown off but haven't been released. And they're coming out in some places. There's also some delayed in the USA, and Canada, and Australia. What's new? And we have the old world made to order.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of orcs and goblins, including the old classic orc war boss on a dragon or a wyvern. I can't remember which one they used, but yeah, that's a funky old model. In fact, speaking of orcs, for 40k you can even get currently the old metal Death Dread and the Blood Axe Commandos, which those are some very classic old orc styles. So if you like that sort of thing, that's kind of funny. I'm considering it.
I do like the old giant kit with this hilarious like jacket made out of banners that has no pants on.
Yeah, I'm a bit scared if you like squats.
You don't want to look up. You don't want to look up. Now, it's interesting. The wyvern model is really interesting because having watched a bunch of the Painting Phases podcast with some of the original painters and sculptors from Games Workshop, kind of gave me a bit more of a moderate and respectful approach towards this, because previously I'd flippantly been like, I hate certain models, they're crap, which I think is a really non-nuanced opinion, and I want to start having better opinions. And I look at it now and I respect it. I think it's cute. I think it's fun. I actually think this is probably my favorite of all of the like lanky dragons from that era, because there's a silliness to orcs that kind of works with it. But I think when I was young, I really didn't like them because it just didn't mesh with my artistic vision of dragons. So as a kid, I'm like, they're not dragons. They're not muscly and big enough. They're not Smaug from The Hobbit. Anyway, that's just I think it's fun.
Yeah, the colours are great on that particular, like the way that
well painted
too. It's very old school. I love it.
So that's the pod.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts about some of these older models that are being released. Do you like that sort of thing appearing every now and then? Yeah. Would
you enter a painting competition? I want to hear talk about painting competitions, what you've learned, what you'd like to learn. Thanks for watching, everyone. I don't think we have anything else to cover. Without Heresy Thursday, what's even the point anymore?
Stare at that cog for a bit longer.
Thank you to the patrons. I did give a bit of a plug to the Patreon earlier, but for the patrons that we have here, thank you so much for all of your support. It lets us keep making stuff. We have a huge video coming out on Saturday. This is a video that I have spent like 3+ weeks on. It's probably one of the longest projects we've ever done. It's a bit out of left field though. I really hope that if you enjoy the stuff we do, you give it a watch, if only to support the ridiculous amount of hours we spent building extremely tiny finessed models.
Give it a watch. Dave basically sacrificed an entire finger to this.
I did have an issue with my joint.
And Patreon members get to enjoy a very special and exclusive tiny video that was a blooper from making the opening.
We're calling it the making of today's coffee bit. And it's going up, and it's some raw footage. You're going to enjoy it. But I will say as well, final comment, the coffee bit is just going to get better and better. I hope, let us know what you thought of today's coffee gag, and if you want more, because there's a lot of movies in the world and we got a lot of creative energy. All right, we should stop at some point.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. See you later.